Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great day. So, it looks like the long-anticipated Scourge of Ghyran leaks, well not leaks, but reveals have started, and looks like we're starting off with, as expected, with the Skaven. So, yeah, the Scourge of Ghyran, the new, is basically going, as we all know, is basically going to be the new General's Handbook that's coming out, and with it, a whole lot of new ways to play the game. I was quite impressed, actually, from the reveals so far. There's a few out as of this point right here. I've just been a little bit distracted to get to them, so I'm just getting to them now. But I'm actually quite impressed by how much they're actually giving out. More so than I was like, I knew they were going to be giving out new stuff, but I didn't expect it to be to this level. But anyway, let's get started. Okay, so the new Skaven rules. Like I said before, this is I would say this is some of a semi-new concept for GW, at least with what they've done in the past for Age of Sigmar. In that I mean is that they've always released like little rules here and there, like fluff lists or like compendiums if you want to like run like a certain type of a certain type of list for a certain army. Like for example, those rules that I think they threw away. They threw away a couple times back about like running pit like your big pigs in a certain way for Iron Jaws. But no, this feels in my opinion a lot different in that this actually feels like GW actually put a certain amount of thought and presentation into these rule add-ons, and that like at least from what I can definitely see for Skaven, like these official rules add-on really do actually add something to the armies. And by the way, feel free to disagree with me. I kind of feel like they actually are making an attempt to fix some of the problems that people have been saying about the current army. Like the various armies that have come out, like almost every single battle tome that's come out for 4th edition so far, people seem to say, oh, well, it's missing this, it's missing that. This honestly almost feels like, for better or for worse, like update patches for the army. And I think that might actually be yeah, I think that might actually be a very good thing going forward. But I know some people are going to pipe up and saying, well, why can't they just make the books good to begin with? Why do they have to like put in updates after the fact? Well, like I said, this is a much more complex conversation than what I want to talk about right here, because I just want to go over the rules. But I do definitely see both sides of the argument for GW going forward if they're basically going to handle like lack of rules in the battle tomes by just giving out like these freer rules every season. Which by the way, let's segue into. So the first big thing that Skaven get are basically 2 new formations, and when I say 2 new formations, 2 new good formations. Like I get a lot of like battle formations. I see a lot of complaints around, especially in 4th edition, where people are constantly saying, "Oh, there's usually only one good one. The other 3 are usually trash. What do we even have these for? Let's just bring back 4 like just regular sub factions. Why do we have what's with all these like formations? Blah blah blah. Well, whatever. Like formations are obviously what they want to go with, and so I say just we have to work with what we're given. And in this regard right here, we actually have some pretty good ones. So yeah, like the envoys of the Deepang Ga, whatever. This one I actually kind of like in that it's giving like a little bit more love towards like the Skaven greater demons, and that I kind of feel like they're kind of like, well, okay, one thing I kind of feel in a lot of ways the Skaven battle tome is has a lot of sub factions and sub unit types in it that are kind of being left behind a little bit, but whatever. That again, that requires a more in-depth analysis. This at least I feel gives at least helps them out a little bit in that essentially it basically is going to give your Skaven demon. By that I mean your vermin lords essentially, unless until GW introduces new Skaven demons, that's all you got. It essentially gives them a 4+ ward and allows you to like essentially do that thing where you every time you're successful you pass off a wound to a nearby Skaven infantry by like giving them a mortal wound within that unit's combat range. So from what I've definitely seen, now I've seen a lot of good things for this type of hero. Like the one I see get used quite a bit is especially basically like for like some sub armies like the Legion of the First Prince. Like I've seen Be'lakor when given this, which by the way he gets a similar ability in that Army of Renown. He is incredibly durable with this here because essentially get like with the 4+ ward, and as long as you have enough Skaven around, which will be quite easy because clan rats essentially like self-perpetuate infinitely. You'll always have you're essentially doubling their wound count in practical terms with this ability right here. The fact that it's a passive ability and is also it's not limited to just one, unlike in like what Be'lakor has to do or any of the others that have to do that, such as with some Legion of Death have that ability as well. This basically means this actually could encourage you to bring multiple Vermin Lords, because now you're basically you're giving them a much better chance of survival long term. Bring them in because some of them have got some pretty good damage output, but like with a lot of big units like that, they attract a lot of fire, so they sometimes don't last that long. So this could be a good thing in that regard. Gathering of the Clans, this one is a little bit different in this regard, and well, here's the thing. I think it actually is a good formation. Don't get me wrong. I actually think it's a very good formation. But my issue with it in regard and why I kind of like the other formation a little better is that the Gathering of the Clans is basically just giving Skaven another trick to do something they already do real good, which is movement. Like Skaven already have a ton of movement shenanigans and deep striking abilities and basically if you go into this, you're basically going hard in on a gimmick they're already really good at, and like which I'm not saying it's bad. Like being able to basically mass redeploy multiple units at the same time is a very good ability, and the fact that it works with all the clans working together is good because it encourages soup, which I think is a good thing for Skaven because I feel that's how they're supposed to be played. What I mean is that I just don't feel like it's doing anything to really fix any glaring issue in the book, whereas like Envoys of the Deepened God, yeah, whatever. That formation at the very least is fixing an issue with the book in that it's allowing Vermin Lords to have just a little bit more practicality and survivability on the battlefield, which I feel they're lacking. This other one is just basically just giving them another way on top of what the half dozen ways they have to do some tricky movement. So both are good. I just feel like thematically the former is a little bit more essential to the book than the latter, but these are still amazing formations. You're not going to have any problems with both. And in fact, I actually think these are actually better than most of the formations in the official book, if you want my opinion. So yeah, thumbs up for these ones, honestly. So these are now your new, essentially what we have here is new heroic traits. And honestly, these are, once again, I think these are actually not too bad. Like I said, like Devious Underlings is... Okay, the way it's worded is a little strange, but at least it's easy to understand in that regard. And I do think it's actually very thematic because the whole point of Skaven, like intrinsically, is about betrayal and short-sightedness and all that kind of thing. And this heroic trait basically encourages that. Yeah, so basically how it works is that you pick a Skaven hero and another hero with equal or higher wounds. Generally, probably want more wounds, but whatever. So basically, while that target has not been slain, friendly Skaven infantry units have a 6+ ward while they're wholly within 13 of this unit, like the unit you're picking. And once the target has been slain, like for example, that Vermin Lord you picked finally goes down, which, like again, as I've said, could be a lot harder now if they get a 4+ ward. Basically, you add 2 to the charge rolls for friendly Skaven infantry units while they're wholly within 13 of this. So again, a little more movement shenanigans, which is pretty good. So yeah, like again, I feel that this one does have I think that this does have some use in the overall book. Like adding a little more survivability to your infantry is a good thing because overall Skaven are not really, especially their infantry, aren't particularly very durable. Like they make out like their durability is their numbers, is that you can kill a bunch of them, they just keep coming. But beyond that, like individually, they're not really that hard to kill. So you have to. So I guess it's fine. Like a 6+ ward at the end of the day isn't really that big of a deal. Like they're still gonna go. Clan rats and even storm vermin are still gonna go down relatively quickly. In that regard here, I actually think the 2+ to your charge rolls is probably actually a better better buff, which I think is why it's included in this, because the way I'm reading this, I don't think you can get the 6+ save after the target is killed. I think you get that before they're killed, and then you get the 2+ to charge after they're killed, which is fine, because I actually think in Skaven, the 2+ to charge rolls is actually better, because Skaven are like, especially infantry, are better on offense than defense. So really, I think I'd rather have more charge range on my infantry than a measly little 6+ ward that will maybe save a few. But you know, like if you're like me who can't roll a 6 to save your life with infantry, like I would honestly probably prefer that. So you know, so yeah, that's my opinion on that. The flesh melder, well, obviously that's kind of the whole thing. That's more of a molder thing. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway. So basically what you have to do is you have to pick a molder unit wholly within 13 of this unit, you know, the one has the heroic trait, and pick one of the target's melee weapons. So basically you add 1 to the rend of those weapons for the rest of the turn. Fine. Yeah, that's pretty good. Now, some people have pointed out, too, that this pretty much really kind of only really will probably only really apply to things like, you know, like rat ogres, and I don't know, I guess to a lesser extent the storm, like, you know, what are those big ones, the Gatling rats or whatever they're called? I forget. It's the big, you know what I mean, the big rats with you know, that have all the machinery on them, that have both, they're both basically a scryer and a molder creation. For the life of me, I'm trying to remember, but whatever. I think you could probably apply that to them, but that's going to be less of a thing for them, because their whole thing is more with shooting. You're not really going to get a whole lot. I don't know if you really want them in combat all that much, but on top of that too, now also some people have pointed out that they're, you know, they're big monsters. I think it's called like their flesh meld abominations or something. The problem with there, as they point out, is that their monsters, especially, like most of their weapons all have like the companion keywords. So this probably won't apply to them. However, that is unless you're taking them in the Army of Renown specifically for Skaven, that allows you know, the Army of Renown that allows you to bypass the companion limitation. So I guess if you're in there, Hell Pit Abomination, that's the one, the big monster I'm talking about. Yeah, like if you bring Hell Pit Abominations in that Army of Renown in the main book, you can basically you can get around that limitation. So that could be good, because again, Storm Fiends just came to me. Yeah, the ones I'm talking about are Storm Fiends. Again, this is only affecting oh, wait, only affecting melee weapons. So, you know, I don't really think you should be getting Storm Fiends into combat. So, my opinion, this one is less useful than the other one, because it pretty much is basically designed to only be taken in that Pacific Army of Renown that's all about molder monsters and molder units, unless you're going heavy, your army's going heavy on rat ogres, which, to be fair, is a legit strategy, because rat ogres are not that bad overall, because, yeah, especially in the new book, I actually think they got up there. They're better now than they were in the last edition. But again, yeah, this one's more of a thematic hero trait, but not saying it's necessarily bad. I just feel like unless you're going heavy on like specific molder units, you're not going to get as much out of this as you said. Now, if we were allowed to upgrade molder shooting weapons, that would have been a whole thing. Because could you imagine Storm Fiends with like +1 rend on all their weapons? Oh my god, that would just you know, we would just be killing things left and right with that, but whatever. And then the last one is Pit Tinkerer. So basically, this one is now. Well, if the last one was all about like their flesh meld creations, this one's all about their actual war machines. So basically, it just allows you to re-roll the random characteristics rolls for the move characteristics of friendly scry or war machines while they're wholly within 13 of this unit. And in addition, each time a friendly scry war machine wholly within 18 uses like Rolling Doom or Whirling Ability or whatever. Basically, just the ability allows them to cause mortal wounds, add 1 to the amount of mortal damage. So, yeah, that's actually pretty good. In my opinion, I think, from what I'm definitely seeing, I think people are going more heavily into war machines these days than monsters. So, that one might actually be a little bit better overall, I would say. Honestly, I might even say that might even be the best one overall because you know Devious Underling is fine, but it's a little too it has a little bit too many steps in the mechanics to really get the best out of it. Like for example, if Devious Underling was just it just gave you just +2 to charge, and if the other hero dies, you get +3 to charge. I think that would have been a lot better because again, I don't think infantry with a 6+ Skaven infantry with a 6+ ward is gonna be as big as some people think it's gonna be. I'm not saying it's nothing, but it's not the I don't I think you'll find other ways to make I think you've got other things in the book you probably want to focus on. And the Flesh Melder, again, it's a little more niche because I think it's probably better to only take that if you're taking I think it's Thanquol's Menagerie it's called. So unless you're taking that specific Army of Renown, the Flesh Melder's not the best one. But Pit Tinkerer I think has the most broad use because no matter what type of thing you bring, as long as you're bringing war machines, this has some use, especially with their doom wheels, etc., where you want them to be running around the table really quickly, but they can be hampered by random movement. So this can help with that. Okay, so now we're on to the War Scrolls. So now the War Scrolls, from how I understand it, is that you have to essentially choose which type of War Scroll you want to pick when you're picking your army. For example, if you have the option to either take the Scourge of Ghyran Brute Terror or the Brute Terror from the book, and then after that happens, that's the only type of Brute Terror you can take. So I don't think you can take one Brute Terror from the book and one Brute Terror for Scourge of Ghyran. It's kind of just one or the other as of this point. Now, assuming that's how it is, I don't know how I feel about that because I kind of feel like, I don't know, maybe it could be GW could have just done it where like, okay, well maybe just you could take both types of Brute Terrors, just 2 different units just using the same model, maybe the original one, which is weaker objectively, mind you, could have just been at a cheaper price, just to give a little bit of, little bit of variety there, but I don't know, I guess they just wanted to simplify things, so it's fine. Before I get into more detail here, one of the other biggest innovations like this that I do love is that they actually they're properly putting the ward save now on the data on the war scroll at the top in these little red circles, which I think is an amazing innovation because a lot of people have pointed out they hate that the only way you can see a ward is in that little word, that little the keyword at the bottom which you had to basically zoom in to even see. So this, in my opinion, is way better. Yeah, and honestly, this also brings up a thing that I think a lot of people are pointing out as that, like, big picture wise, releasing gradual updates to armies instead of just putting everything in the battle tome can actually be a good thing because it allows them to to fix little problems with the game intrinsically. Like for example, putting the ward in a proper place. Once a book is out, the book is out. You can't really do much to those war scrolls, which is probably why I think GW doesn't like doing too many updates to an army because they're just discouraging people from touching the book, getting the book in the first place. But again, that's a big picture talk. I just want to talk about the war scrolls. So basically what we have here is we have updates to both the Brood Terror and the Grey Seer. The Grey Seer, in my opinion, has definitely gotten a very good glow up. It's much more it's much more obvious that it's a support piece than it was before. It's got, even ironically though, I think it does have better attacks. Like for example, the Rat Ogre attacks are much better now because I think they had a companion before, which again, I think if they did is dumb because regular Rat Ogres don't have that problem. I don't know why this one did, but whatever. Anywho, it basically, yeah, the bell tolls have now been changed. It's no longer a roll. Now it's based on what battle round is, which is honestly much better because at least now it's not so random as was before. Now basically just, if the battle round is if the battle round is odd, you just basically add 2 to the movement of all Skaven wholly within 13, and if the battle round is even, you subtract 1 for attacks that target friendly Skaven, which again is really good too. Again, this is just cementing that this Grey Seer, it's not meant to be a line breaker, it's not meant to be a tarp hitter, it's meant to be a support piece. Bring it up. But its movement, it's got good it can move, but it's not meant to be necessarily in combat. which its unique spell really kind of points that out, in that you've basically got like essentially you get this unique spell off, and it basically turns the Grey Seer into a mobile Nahul, which I think is actually a very good thing. Now, I know I said before that I think Skaven don't need too much more movement shenanigans. Yes, not just random movement shenanigans. This one I feel is different because it's actually fixing an intrinsic problem with the original Battle Tome, in that their Nahuls can't move. Like, once you put down a Nahul, you can't move them around and such. And as the battle changes and things redeploy and everything, sometimes you can get points where, you know, you probably wished you had, like, a Nahul in a different location on the map for, like, better deep striking, etc. Well, this basically allows you to do it. You can move this thing around and allow you to have good control over where and when a Nahul is on the board. Because another problem with Nahuls is they're easy to destroy. Like, obviously, you can bring them back from your Battle Tome abilities, but still, they can't just do it immediately. This at least adds a little bit more of survivability to your deep striking beacon, and then also finally allows you to like heal your units around you, which again, perfectly solid. Skaven generally aren't lacking for bodies, but hey, what brings more on the table basically just keeps you alive longer. So yeah, Grey Seer, solid glow up, solid abilities. I honestly think you're probably I would say you probably should at least try the Grey Seer on Screaming Bell at least once, because it adds so much more utility to your army. Brood Terror, my opinion, it's just flat out better than it was before. It has better attack output. It's got better utility overall. It's got a built-in 5-up ward now, so it's much more survivable than it was before. In terms of a frontal assault, it's got a okay fighting ability. I think that's fine in that regard. In addition to that, it's also got, it's even actually, now this is kind of weird too, it seems to like almost act like a quasi-hero buffing other units, even though it technically isn't a hero. So it's a little strange in that regard here. I almost wonder if maybe they should, maybe they should have just made the Brood Terror just a hero, so it kind of just differentiate a little bit more from the Hell Pit Abomination. But whatever, I guess maybe they just didn't know how to balance it properly. But it's fine. It's fine. Essentially, it just allows you to like you say, to buff other like mold, like other like non-scryer molder units, within range. I think you can improve their attack their attack strength, which is fine. And a little bit surprised too that it's also a rampage. I don't know how I feel about that, because okay, for one, basically doing so, like, you're taking away a little bit of attack output by the Brood Terror to do so, and you're giving +1 to hit to, like, another, basically your Rat Ogres, but which is fine, because, the loosely attached limbs are not really that big of a deal, but my issue with this is that it's a rampage, and I'm starting to notice more and more in the games that rampages, there's getting a lot more abilities that specifically shut down rampages, so I don't know how vulnerable this would be. Maybe this would have been better just as like a passive ability or something, or like a once per turn army ability. I don't know. I just feel that might have been a little bit more safer. Because yeah, it's gonna be kind of annoying when you need to like buff a unit of Rat Ogres, give them more hit, like better hitting, and then someone just rolls up and just says, okay, shut rampage, shut it down, I don't know. And it still does its D6. It still does its D6 healing, so that's all good and dandy. So overall, I would say I don't know if it's really gonna win over unlike the Grey Seer. I don't know if it's gonna win over anyone who are like unsure about the Brood Terror before. At the very least, this particular model is objectively better, so it's in a better direction. I would say before the Brood Terror was more just a fluff unit. You brought it because you thought it looked cool, not that you thought it was gonna win you games. This at least I think has a little bit more utility in general. It's not the most point efficient unit in the army, but I think you'll not hate yourself so much bringing it. I could see people bringing this now for what it is, especially if they're going for a monster mash army. So yeah, overall, Skaven rules very solid, and honestly, it almost feels like this is like when people are complaining that the battle tomes are so short. I almost feel like this is like you know, the rest of the book. Like this could have just been in the book from begin with, or it's that good. So again, I think I might have a talk. I might go into detail about that and talk and discuss a bit more, like how much should GW actually put in the book rather than just putting in these additional rules after the fact. But anyway, thanks for stopping by, and yeah, enjoy your new Skaven rules. Bye.